Hi guys, this is Jade. Thank you for joining me over here on my Automage Designs YouTube channel. Today I'm going to give you guys a crash course in how to color select for coloring gold. Whether it's trinkets and accessories or gold that you're actually mining out of the earth, we're going to be talking about how to pick out the right colors for those golds and a couple of different techniques that you can use to bring out the gold-like qualities and not use a really ugly garish yellow. So first, this is the garish yellow I'm talking about. Do not use that color. That is yellow. It is not gold, and it is really ugly. And if you were trying to send this gold to a printer, they are not going to be able to print this gold. This is like a neon color. So what you want to do instead is look up kinds of gold that you want to draw. So I just Googled gold, and I'm scrolling through, and I'm going to find a couple of examples for us to use. We're going to use this ore gold for one kind. It's kind of rocky and has a texture to it, and you notice it is not the garish yellow. That color does not exist here. We're also going to be using gold bars, which are much brighter. They have a bit of a brushed effect to them. And I'm going to be using these gold jewelry, which are more in an environment for us. It looks like it was taken in someone's store, and that gives us a bit of an idea of how the light is going to hit jewelry from far away and what those colors might look like when we're not just standing right up on top of them, taking a picture of them with our flash, right? So the next thing you want to do once you have an idea of what kind of gold you want to draw from, you want to use your color picker to take out some samples of the midtones, the highlights, and the darks. And so you can see that I've done that, and I'm dragging this ugly yellow square behind it to show you guys that these are not the same kind of gold. So we get a little bit close with the really processed gold bars on the bottom right, but really we're still not in that same spectrum of that bright, ugly, garish yellow, because that's not gold. All of the brushes you're going to see me using today are just completely normal brushes. I use the pen tool, I use the airbrush tool, and I'm working in a program called Clip Studio Paint. I am affiliated with Clip Studio Paint. I love it. I'm using their EX version of the product, and if this is a drawing program that you're considering getting, I would greatly appreciate it if you use the code underneath the video to support me and to support Clip Studio Paint, and let them know that you liked the content that I produced. So the first one that I drew, all of these, by the way, these three that you're going to watch right now are all drawn using a normal layer as the base layer with one of those middle tones selected for each of their respective images, and then it has another normal layer on top of it where I'm incorporating, some of the other middle tones, the highlights, and the darkest of the darks. And I'm giving some consideration to even lightening up the lightest highlight, because a lot of times when you use the color picker, you won't get the lightest light, so use your intuition and instinct as an artist to determine how much of a bright, glare you want coming onto each of these. And you can tell that there's a different flavor to the first two that I've done and to the gold bar that I'm just starting on now. We're keeping all of the features of the gold bar also kind of fluffy, so that it doesn't look like someone took black and just like chiseled into it with a black pen. We're incorporating oranges, we're incorporating the brown, so that it really does start to look like an imprint. And again, I'm just going really quickly with these. It's not meant to be a tutorial on how to shade something. It's more how to select the right kind of colors and how to understand how these different layers are going to interact. One thing that I see a lot of chibi artists doing is they will offset some of their brightest brights with a little bit of a dark outline around it, which you can see me doing on the upper right. And that's okay to do too. Whenever you put a really, really dark next to a really, really bright light, it's going to draw the eye directly there. And a lot of times that's what you want to do when you're shading eyes. So if you're doing something like a gold eye, this can be really fun. And here's the ugly yellow. Don't do that. Like that's what the yellow would look like with these more natural hues behind them. So now I want to show you guys a little bit more of like what it looks like when you're just shading like normal on top of normal if you're going for something more vibrant, like what I do. And unfortunately, when you're stacking normal layers on top of each other, they're not really pulling in to get a really good sense of depth and really good glare and really good color integration. If you're going to be working with a normal layer, you really want to be working on one normal layer versus using several different ones and then combining them. it just doesn't work very well. And then you see me like going with the gold, like trying to color it, and I'm like, no, like I can't color with that ugly yellow. I can't color with that. So now I want to show you guys what I do to create a really intense gold without using the really ugly yellow or without using multiple normal layers. I like to use what's called a linear burn layer. I create some hard shadows using a very light muted purple on one linear burn layer that is put to the normal layer beneath it. Then I do some fluffier shadows with a darker purple. It's still kind of muted. And then I top it off with a normal layer with some of the, not quite a white, but a very light yellow as the highlights. So those are the colors you see me drawing with that I used in this piece. I also like to experiment with a third linear burn layer with either pinks or oranges to see what kind of atmospheric colors and hues I could bring to it, to it additionally. Like for example, if you're underwater, maybe you want to try adding some teals, to incorporate those colors. Then I go back over the piece just really, really lightly with the airbrush tool using the ugly yellow that I always say not to use. Sometimes I'll even put this over the top of the line art to make it look like the gold might be shimmering, like really, really ultra shimmering. And then when you have all of the clothes and stuff, it, glares up over the top of that too, which can look really fun. So again, multiple linear burn layers, using the softer, more like a muted lavender and a darker lavender. And then the normal layer using, not quite a white. And then you can try out different colors and then use the Add Glow just a little bit to give it that extra oomph that it needs. On the gold bar, I'm going to show you guys without using any of the hard lines, kind of what it can look like. Again, going more for an inscribed, kind of recessed gold look, not really doing any of the hard lines on top of it because we don't want it to look like, someone drew on this gold bar with a pen. We want it to look like, the gold is actually casting shadows on itself, and it's actually got depth to it. And then we're doing it a little bit lighter and a little bit softer because, again, this surface is more brushed versus being something that's really shiny and really slick. So those are kind of the differences that I was talking about, in thinking about, what you want to do. So taking a step back, first, you want to be asking yourself, what type of gold do you want to draw? Then you want to ask yourself, what does this kind of gold feel like? Is it like rough, like the ore we were talking about? Is it really polished? Is it smooth? Is it highly processed? Does it have kind of that brushed texture to it? You also want to ask yourself, how is the gold being used? Is someone wearing it? Is it being wielded? Because that might change how many nicks are in it. Is it being displayed? Then we're going to also be thinking about what kind of atmosphere the gold is actually in. Is it really dark? Is it damp? Are we underwater? Is there a really bright light coming from one side? Are there lots of colors for it to reflect, like an earring with a ruby hanging off of it? And then ask yourself, do I want to use this hard or soft shading? And which one of those options actually will look the best and convey the right type of gold? Then you want to go and find references. Notice that is plural, references. Look at a lot of different ones. Don't redraw them, but you want to be practicing it. You want to think about the thickness, the texture, the lighting, the scale, and do a few test runs. Do a few, studies on gold to try to figure out what is going to be best for you and what is going to be best for the piece that you're working on. Remember, this may change with each type of art that you make. Something that you made, that's an underwater scene is obviously going to be different than if you're drawing a frame for somebody, right? These are not going to be the same things. Jewelry is going to look different than a sword, and that's okay. So if you find that, you get into a certain way of drawing gold, and then suddenly it doesn't seem to look right for the piece that you're working on, that's okay. Take a step back and ask yourself those questions again. What kind of gold am I drawing? What is its purpose? How is someone using it in this image? And give that some serious thought because that can really change what you're drawing and how you're going to shade it, what kind of colors you're going to be making to use it. So thank you guys for joining. I hope that you found this tutorial helpful. If you enjoy my content, as always, I always appreciate the like and subscribe, all that other nonsense. And if you want to help me make better videos, One way you can do that is by supporting me on Patreon. I do have a Patreon up. It's called Mage Designs, and for as little as $1 per month, you can help me increase the frequency and quality of the videos that I produce for here on YouTube. Because they do take a lot of time. I am a full-time artist, and my primary goal is drawing, but whenever I get the chance to take a little bit of time out of my day to show you guys how to do something, I am more than happy to do it. So thank you guys again for joining me. If you have any other questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. You can also use my suggestions channel in Discord, and you can join me on Twitch and actually watch me draw things live. I am Jade the Otter Mage over on Twitch, and I'd love to have you join the community. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.